So Rosen comes out. I thought it's kind of a truism. He said, listen, if you want to be a great student and a great football player, you got to make a choice. Is he right?
Not really. I mean, essentially, he's not making that choice right now. He's saying, I want to get my MBA. He's saying it's difficult, but never, you have to differentiate difficult from impossible. But there were some truths to what he said. There are plenty of student athletes. There are plenty of students that don't belong in college.
You're right.
But one of the reasons that college athletics allows people to get in that with their grades or with their SATs or ACTs normally couldn't get in is because you put them in that environment and they learn how to assimilate to that level of education, to that level of student. And what they become is a productive member of society.
Yeah,
so
I love that. I love that part of college sports.
That's why these college coaches do it. Like, I understand that we all believe that they do it because they make 7 and some now are making 8 figures. But the real reason, the root of why they got into it was because most of them went through the process themselves.
Right.
We all come in thinking we're going to the pros, and then you get there and you probably meet a girl, you meet your best friends, and oh yeah, by the way, you learn to separate the time you're supposed to study, the time on the field, the time in the film room, and the time you get to party. So the idea that it can't be done, especially at UCLA. Look, it's harder to get into UCLA because you have to take calculus.
Yeah.
There are less majors in which you can hide people. And UCLA has a little bit of what Cal Berkeley has. See, Stanford, it's hard to get into Stanford, but nobody flunks out of Stanford.
Yeah,
Did you just say it's because they have to take calculus?
You have to take calculus in
Yes.
high school.
That's
Yeah.
a requirement
Yep.
to get into
Yeah.
UCLA?
Yeah.
Wow.
My daughter, you got to take.
That's crazy. I didn't take calculus.
Yeah, look,
in high
Val
school.
Victoria, my high school did not get into UCLA.
Yeah.
I could have got in because
my
of basketball.
daughter's a 4.25 student, has applied. She doesn't think she'll get into UCLA.
It's one of the things, honestly, that irritates me about people in our profession that undervalue what a scholarship is. Because a scholarship, it's not just paying your room and board, tuition, et cetera, without any taxation. It's also just the ability to get into school. USC used to be when I was coming up, it was a joke. C students got into, like, you party in high school. Anybody, if you could pay the check, pay the bill, you could get into USC. USC is ridiculously difficult to get into now, to the level almost of UCLA.
It is I mean, it's. By the way, all my friends that went to USC all say the same thing. They couldn't get in.
They couldn't get in now. But UCLA. But here's the thing: the idea that you can't balance being a student and being an athlete. Do you know UCLA doesn't start school until the 25th of September? They will have played 4 games.
I know.
So when you don't have school, there's no limitations on practice time. You're also collecting per diem. You have your cost of attendance. You have your apartment. All you're doing is being a football player. And then, look, you're not really taking classes once you get to mid-October. Half your season's done. Football players, I'm sorry, I have no sympathy. Basketball players have no sympathy for football players.
That's right.
You're a one-semester sport. You do have spring football. You do have some training. There's plenty of time to be a student athlete. And the other part that he's skipping, or maybe he doesn't notice because he goes to UCLA, most student athletes, matter of fact, a lot of students now, they don't actually attend class on campus. A lot of stuff is done online.
Yes.
And because of it, if there's a class that conflicts, you just take it online and it's fine. I think that he's doing more harm to the reputation of true student athletes, and I think he's contradicting himself because he's saying the two don't mix, even though I'm doing it myself.
By the way, you went to Notre Dame and were a great high school basketball player and ended up there. And we got into a discussion this week where Charlie Weiss said it's different. Joel Klatt said it ain't that different. Brady Quinn said, yes, it is Klatt. And it was kind of, a non-friendly fire here at FS1.
Yeah, it was.
You went to Notre Dame. Is it different?
Yeah. I went to Notre Dame. I went to Oklahoma State. And I'll say this about Notre Dame. Also equally difficult to get into, maybe more so than any of the others. Small school. People think of Notre Dame.
It's private.
Well, they think of Notre Dame, they think 25,000 students. When I was there, it was 7,500. Now it's 9,000 students.
Yeah.
There's also nowhere to hide because your freshman year, you take freshman studies. You have to take a swim test, and you have to take PE. It's because they don't want you to fall in the lake and drown. Okay, but you have to take theology. I took molecular biology. I had no idea what was going on. I was completely lost. And they have the honor code, which they really hold near and dear to their heart. I do think that there's a little bit more virtue from the Notre Dame student athlete than some of the others. I think it's one of those hard to get into and hard to stay in, and they will kick you out or they will make you take a year off. They will suspend you for cheating. They hold their athletes to very, very high standards. I am the perfect example of that.
Well, and also let's Josh Rosen pointed out to something, and he said, and I think it's one of those where yes, if Alabama, Clemson raise their academic profile or restrictions, we all know that's true. There's no reason to take shots at anybody. We know that some schools are harder, some are easier, and that's you. By the way, those college kids make those choices, and I'm fine with it.
It works the other way around as well. Harvard in basketball had never been to the NCAA tournament. Tommy Amaker goes in there and says, well, what are we doing here? Like, we're Harvard, but we have to lower some of our admission standards. They did so and allowed a little bit lesser student in as athletes.
Still a good student.
I mean, you're still getting to Harvard. They're not taking JUCOs, right? Like, I couldn't have gotten into there, right? They take elite level student athletes, but they slightly lowered their standards, and all of a sudden now they're competitive nationally. So, even Stanford, as much as it's hard to get, it's easier to get into Stanford as a student athlete than it is other places. There was a lot of right in what he's saying. Like there's a lot of wrong in how we do sometimes take a player from an environment scholastically and put him on a college campus, and some schools expect him to just swim in the deep end. But I think the greater good is the great majority of us, we learn how to balance. That's what you learn in college. You don't learn any one specific thing in a course that you can use in life. What you learn is balancing how much money you have in your scholarship check. If you're getting any money from home with all your bills, you learn to put your time together. What do you do as far as partying, girls, basketball for me, and school? How much do you study? How much do you read? How much time do you spend watching TV?
Choices.
Yeah, right. That's what you learn in order to get yourself ready for when basketball or football ends. And I think there is a lot of right to what he said, but there's so many people who hate the college system for whatever reason. They're like, oh, you can't do both. Like, you can do both. He's doing both.
Okay, so I call it the LeBron rule. We have the Buster Posey rule. Augusta Tiger-proofed their course. We have the Tom Brady rule. In fact, I would argue when Peyton Manning had a horrible playoff game and threw a bunch of picks, they changed the cornerbacks can grab the receiver rule. That we have done this with Lou Alcindor and Wilt Chamberlain, that like great players either get limited or altered or protected. And LeBron is so great. So the NBA now suddenly is outraged with guys sitting out games. I call it the LeBron rule. What do you call it?
I think it's fair, but I think it would also be fair to say you're talking about Tim Duncan, you're talking about Shaquille O'Neal, you're talking about other players that have sat out and why we didn't react to it. Who have we spent the last couple of months comparing LeBron James to? Michael Jordan.
Right.
And I think there were 9 seasons. When Michael Jordan came back with the Wizards his last year in D.C. at 39 years old, he played 82 games.
Yeah.
He understood that the league made its money based upon his presence on a basketball floor. And LeBron doesn't seem to get that and doesn't seem to care. And just like on a basketball team, your football team, you are a reflection of your best player. The NBA, you are a reflection of LeBron James. If LeBron James says, I'm going to play through it, I'm going to play through fatigue, and I'm going to show up, then everyone is going to feel like, you know what? LeBron does it. I got to do it.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, this is not just the LeBron rule. It's the they're pissed at LeBron rule. ESPN is, Turner is. There's no question. ESPN is bleeding money.
Yeah.
And they're bleeding money because of a lot of bad deals, but this is the worst. Okay? They thought they were going to pay 2x for the NBA. They end up paying 3x for the NBA. $700 million more than they thought they were going to have to pay. That's why they went over their budget. But they did so because it was a really valuable property. Well, you pay all that money, and the first year of your new TV contract, you put them on national TV 4 times a week, and then you turn it on, and LeBron James is supposed to play in Memphis, and he's not there.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
So these networks go to Adam Silver and say, we got an issue.
Yes, and it becomes a league-wide problem when your best player, when the guy that we're saying is the Jordan of this era isn't showing, and we can go back and say, like, look, Jordan played. You can't tell us you want to be considered the next Michael Jordan or an equal to or better than Michael Jordan and not understand the weight that carries.
That's
and the
right.
weight that carries is showing up to work every day.
Yeah.
It's like Bruce Springsteen. Like, look, I'm not are you a Springsteen guy?
It's fine.
I know, but some guys are crazy about Springsteen.
A lot of people.
But they all say about Springsteen, like 2.5 hours, the boss, he just gets up and kills it, right? Like, can you imagine if you wait, the boss is coming to town, and he shows up, and he gives you an hour, right? And lip syncs the whole thing. You're like, whoa, hold on.
Wait a minute.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what LeBron and many of the other NBA players are doing.
Okay. So I led my show with it's not just what people say, it's when and why they say it.
Yep.
And so Conor McGregor gets ripped by a sparring partner, and 2 days later, Mayweather comes out and says, one, I'm an old can of tomato can.
I'm so washed up right now.
And secondly, I'm changing everything. It's going to be a brawl in the center of the ring.
Oh, boy.
Did you believe any of it?
Not a single word. I don't think this is going to be mildly competitive. I think once they ring the bell, the only thing people are waiting to see is if Conor McGregor somehow loses his mind, takes off his glove, and just tries to go bare knuckles or starts kicking Floyd Mayweather. Like, no one with any sort of sense thinks this is going to be a good fight, right? This is one last big money grab for Floyd Mayweather, and one way of this is the bait and switch for Conor McGregor, who's he lost the last couple fights, hasn't he? Right? So all of a sudden now we're going to sit there and go, now we're going to buy into this? No, they are covering for each other. This is all kind of a ruse. They tried to create some sort of conflict when Conor grabs the microphone and says all kinds of things about Floyd Mayweather. They act like they hate each other. Now, so you mean to tell me that Floyd Mayweather has been the best boxer, pound for pound, in the world over the last decade or so, and for 20 years he has fought one way. And at the end of his career, against a non-boxer, he's going to go, you know what, the hell with it. I'm going to cut out my one distinct advantage I have, that I'm the greatest defensive fighter in the history of the fight game, just because because I may have lost a step. Like, I don't buy it for. And look, I'm still going to buy the fight. I'm still or go to the fight if I can get tickets, but I don't believe it for 1 second.
This would be like a really bad Super Bowl and Tom Brady saying, listen, my last game, I'm going to the read option. From this point, there'll be no drops. I'm going to the read option.
This is the Great White Hype. Have you seen the movie The Great White Hype?
No.
Damian Wayans, John Lovitz, Samuel L. Jackson, right? Where they find the champ is out of shape. The champ's like, I'm in shape. I'm round. Round is a shape, right? And the one flaw for the champ is the overhand right. And a guy beat him in the amateurs. So they find this guy. They create this kind of mystique behind him. And for about the first 15 seconds of the fight, you think it's a fight. And then all of a sudden the guy wakes up and he's going to drink his meals out of a straw. This is go and if you Netflix, you can still, Disney pulled out of Netflix, but everybody else still on Netflix. You can Netflix The Great White Hype over the weekend. One, it's really funny. And two, there's a unique parallel to what we're going to see in Vegas in a couple weeks.
Good seeing you, Doug Gottlieb. He is on Fox Sports Radio, 3 to 6 Eastern. Love him now that he's at our network. Good seeing you, bud.